All right, time for the heavy hitters outside of our Beacon Hill studio. Cosmo Macero of O'Neill Associates, a man who took his two sons to WWE Raw last night.
The return of The Rock after 7 years. It was a good show.
A late show, though, so you'd be a little tired this morning.
My wife's dealing with a couple of cranky kids this morning.
Yeah, no, his wife is. He's not.
Smart play. Peter Cadges of the Boston Phoenix, a man who did not take in Raw, instead watched probably another episode of Upstairs, Downstairs, I'm guessing.
I was doing homework with my kids.
Very nice. Number of issues to get to, gentlemen. Let's start with Obamacare, because we find out yesterday the Supreme Court is actually going to take this thing on. We weren't sure if they were. What's your prediction, Cosmo? How's this going to go? I mean, mandate's the key, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about the mandate and whether it's constitutional for the government to compel you to. And I think it's an interesting issue that could have important implications here in Massachusetts. The question is, in Massachusetts, who would a plaintiff be? Would it be the providers or the health plans? Probably not. Would it be consumers or?
You're talking about if the Supreme Court strikes down Obamacare,
yes.
Wouldn't necessarily Romney Care then be struck down?
And would it be at risk? And I think it potentially could. Just depends on who the plaintiff could be. How this goes, though, I think is still certainly a toss-up, and that's why the court's looking at it.
Supreme Court gets a lot of talk, but in reality, how much does it really affect things, Peter? In his case, I think we got a heavyweight show.
Oh, look at what it did in campaign finance. You know, it had a massive effect, unleashing corporate cash. I think this is going to be very similar to that case. It's going to be a 5-4 vote, with Kennedy being the swing, and I predict that the individual mandate will be overturned.
Struck down, okay.
Struck down, I think, with Kennedy being the final vote. However, the Supreme Court knows what a massively important case this is, which is one reason why they've taken it's not unprecedented, but the highly unusual step of reserving 5.5 hours for argument before the court. Normally, arguments for even serious cases merely take 1 hour. Some things will not change, however. One thing that won't change is going to be health care for pre-existing conditions forever. And Cosmo, you are right that the way any decision is written will affect Romney Care here, but we shouldn't forget that states have prerogatives that are different from the federal government, and it's entirely possible that the bill could be struck down or upheld, and it have no effect on Romney.
It'd be interesting to see how this would affect November next year if it happens before then for Obama, or if it was struck down. But aside from that, Peter said 5-4 vote, Cosmo. There's already grumblings that Justice Kagan should recuse herself because the day Obamacare was voted on, she sent an email to Lawrence Tribe over at Harvard saying, "Oh my God, I think they got the votes. This is great." Should she step down and not vote in this thing?
I don't agree with that. No, I think an opinion that an individual has, certainly prior to their time in the court, is something that they're going to have, and justice is supposed to be blind. That's why we have the Supreme Court. I think that the job of the justice is to interpret the Constitution, and you have to have faith that they can do that.
Well said, Cosmo. Well said.
Well said.
I can't say justices, but that's what I meant.
Well said. On the other hand, if you're pulling for a jury, you would definitely ask not to pick her.
We're not pulling for a jury.
She is the jury in this case.
No,
she's not.
No, she's not the jury.
She's hearing the case and she's deciding.
Listen,
the United States Supreme Court, and they're the last stop on interpreting the Constitution.
Justice Scalia has made public statements that should have caused him to recuse himself from other cases. When I've disagreed with him, which is most of the time, I'm tempted to use that argument. I happen to think he's able to rise above that. There's going to be all sorts of malarkey on both sides here. This is going to be a landmark case because there are so many principles about the way the government works embedded in it.
Short on time because Cadges has been hogging most of it. So let's talk about Newt Gingrich, who is rising in the polls. Public policy has him leading now. In Iowa, he's in a statistical 4-way dead heat, which includes Ron Paul, by the way. Well, what do we attribute the rise to, Cosmo, and what do we make of this?
Hey, let's hear it for smart candidates. It's good to see one of the smartest guys, if not the smartest guy on the stage, surging and rising because people are recognizing he's a dynamic guy who's has his own vision for the country. So I think it's a good thing.
He's the flavor of the week again, the flavor of the month. It says less about Gingrich and more about how weak the other bozos are.
Yeah, I don't think he's necessarily the smartest candidate, number one. He is the most arrogant.
I think people need an alternative to the alternatives being Perry and Kaine, and that's where they're looking at
Do you
him.
think President Obama's looking at this going, beautiful, bring on Newt? Because do you think Newt Gingrich could take out President Obama in an election?
I think the guy has staying power in this campaign. I don't know if he can take out Obama. I'm not sure if any of these guys can. But all of a sudden, there's another alternative to Romney. I think it's kind of important.
Yeah, I think the only one that can take Obama out is Romney.
And I'm not even sure that's going to work. But again, we get back to the Supreme Court then. So, Peter Katz at the Phoenix, Cosmo Macero, Vonino Associates. Go get some sleep, Cosmo. Or go help the wife with the kids, for God's sakes.
Good idea.